is if there was anything on our mind, negative or otherwise, we bring it out in the prayer, and then after the prayer, we go, oh, I did not know that was an issue.
That's a great thought.
It's a good way to get the message up to God that, you know, it is a concern for us.
Okay. One of the things I heard you say was you have grown. He has grown into
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful. And let me say, ladies, couples, we men do need to grow. We are constantly growing.
That may be true for some men, but not, it hasn't been that way for us.
You mean we constantly growing?
Well, no. Mr. Wonderful, it didn't take him long.
Oh, okay. I did see him a couple of times with bruises on his head.
Wasn't by her.
It didn't take him long at all.
That's that boxing company we were talking about. Yeah, I got that in there.
Glenn, would you and Samantha give us a little synopsis of the high years and where you've come from and where you are now?
You know, I think back to when we first got married. We actually met and married in 7 months. So we didn't know each other very well, but marriage begins in the heart. And since it began in the heart, we have to be committed to the marriage and to the relationship. And so over the years, we got to know each other better. In the first 5 years, you know, it was a little hell on wheels because I was bringing all of me, she was bringing all of her and all our pathology with it. And so thanks to the fact that we had Christ in our life, made a big difference. And so once we got past 5, things kind of smoothed it out for us. And so those first 5 years, while they were somewhat turbulent, they were still high for us too, because we were certainly in love. And we made a few vows and commitments, not just to God, but to each other, that divorce just was not an option for us. And so we were going to be there for the long haul of an indefinite delay. And so we kind of stuck it out. And just the fact that we learned so much about marriage with each other. Our parents and family was in a different city. So we didn't have a lot of people being too nosy all in our business. So we kind of had to work it out together. And so it's been wonderful. If I had to do it all over again, she'd be the one I married.
And the key thing that he said is that we had Christ in our lives. And without Christ in your life and him and Christ being the center, you have nothing. And I think that was the most important thing. We were committed to God and then we committed to each other. So having Christ in our lives was very important.
Putting God first is always.
Absolutely.
And as Larry and Kathy had stated, you know, they pray before each one. I like how they're listening. Larry, you want to say something there?
Yeah, I was just reading, and of course you're talking about listening, and that's a really good thing. And I usually like to have some scripture based on some things that I'm listening to. And Kathy just wonderfully said that I'm going into Mr. Wonderful, where she started out as Miss Beautiful, and that was part of our prayer too. But James 1:19 says, and this is just out of the NIV, it says, "Why, my brethren, beloved brethren, that every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath." Well, that hearing part of the listening is a very important aspect of growth in marriage, because with that in mind, you gave us our cheat sheet. You know, you have listening, but there's an opposite in listening, which is called complaining. And that can cause issues in a lot of people's lives too. You know, when you got opposites, you know, conversely, that's what we men don't like to hear a lot of. And my Miss Beautiful is my wife that learned to do a lot more listening. I have got to do more listening, and that's continuously to enhance our marriage and our growth and our relationship. That's important in a relationship. You know, the one that speaks the most, I was reading on this thing right here, it says, in one of it says, the best way to test and check in every conversation who speaks the most, the person who speaks the less is the most caring. I said, oh, isn't that interesting in reading the information? So needless to say, listening is important in our relationship.
Good. What do you want to say?
No, not really. I echo what my brother is saying. You know, the listening part is the tough part. And then being able to listen with love. You know, one of the things that we often talk about is seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. And in order to do that, you've got to be listening and doing what my favorite mentor always tells me is ask a lot of questions. That will guarantee the other part of it, that you're listening and that they're being heard.
Talk to us a little bit about both of you, both couples. Talk to us a little bit about, I know you know about agape listening. I've been teaching Larry agape listening. Have you any idea what I'm talking about when I say agape listening? Great, because I believe you cannot have agape love if you do not have agape listening. Want to throw some nuggets at folks that are in our audience about agape listening.
You want me to do it?
Anybody? Anybody? Well, first, the chapter for agape love. Is that 2 Chronicles 12 and 13, I believe?
You've got to ask a preacher sharper than me.
Ed Russell was on there. That's Bill. Bill, you can type
Google
that
that.
in. Yeah,
Check that out
type
for
that
us.
in if I'm right or wrong. But
the one thing that I do know is that the agape listening portion is really about being the agape love is about being unconditional.
right.
And you know, when the scripture tells you about unconditional love, you got to get yourself out of the way. However, when it comes to agape listening, you have to have the same intentionality. However, there is some conditions to it. You know, it's unconditional when it starts, but it's conditional when you get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is being able to reflect back to the person what they said to you, and then ask them, did I get that right?
Right.
And the more questions you ask, there's a good chance that you're going to get it right. Because most of the time, one of the spouses is going to say, no, that's not what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so the job then is to try to help them or give them an opportunity to better articulate what they're saying. Because from their mouth to my ears, it travels through the devil's territory.
Right.
And so then how I hear it has a lot to do with whether or not I'm in tune.
Does that also mean that we have an opportunity, the listeners, not only to give them an opportunity to explain more, but give us an opportunity to understand more?
Yes.
Because the way we filter things differently.
Yes.
And once those words or any words are spoken, we naturally assume what we believe to be true,
Yes.
which may or may not be correct.
And as a habit, we tend to prepare ourselves for a response. And while we're preparing a response, we tend to miss out on what's being said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, based on the information you just shared, and I definitely agree with, concur with my brother here, and you teaching us, and we've been learning the agape listening, which is the unconditional listening. And based on what we hear, one of the things you brought out, which was very important, how we choose to respond,
Yes,
is the most important thing of that, because of what we hear may not be what they said. And when you do agape listening, that gives the choice. We make the choice of how we
Yes.
respond to them.
Yes.
And I love that aspect of it, because in the agape listening, which is derived from the agape love, which we know now in Greek, based on our learning, and me and Kathy have studied this in our churches, that you have the 4 definitions of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's the agape love, it's the Philippi love, it's the eros love, and those loves with the listening is all part of the whole total sum of everything.
Right.
And that's what helps a good relationship when we're conscious, and that's the key aspect of it, because we're so emotional. When the things started happening, we men, we tend to we can fly off the handle sometimes. But with a great relationship and a growth process and that agape listening there, then we're conscious on the things that we say and do. And that conscientious helps us make like good choices, which improves good lifestyle, which improves our good behavior.
Yes.
You know, or how we develop our relationships. And those are things that as mastermind wisdom coaches and mentees, those are the learning processes that you brought to our attention and it helped only in Kathy and our relationship, but more importantly, it made us more conscientious of the good things that have been happening in our lives. We could put a title or a definition to it now. We
Yes.
can describe it, what we're doing. You know,
Yes.
that's been a blessing to us also.
I have a story for you guys. Now, my wife, you guys know, both of you have met Shirley. Shirley's not here. She couldn't be here because of lupus. But I have a story. One evening, I was talking to our son, Chris, and he was kind of upset that he's older. He doesn't have a steady girlfriend, but he has a steady job. He has income.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
He ain't got no baby mama drama.
Well,
And he was asking for suggestions on, well, I kind of gave him a suggestion on maybe he should talk with his brothers because they were married and they have sisters and people that they work with. So I suggested that he would talk to them about maybe being introduced to some of their young ladies. So I walked upstairs and said to Shirley, my wife, that I had made that suggestion to Chris. And her reactions was this. That's stupid. What would you think my reaction may have been if I did not know what I know now?
Right.
What do you think that reaction would be? And do you think that you might react adversely to a comment like that?
yeah, I mean, the first thing, who you calling stupid?
That's the way I would take it.
That's exactly, you know, immediately I'm going to make that about me.
Right. Right. And what you think?
Me personally, I would think the same thing, but I would probably after that say, well, maybe she did not mean that it was stupid, that you were stupid, but maybe just the thought of how it was handled.
Exactly. Because, go ahead.
Now, I would think first that men have a tendency, I'm not trying to group all men together, men have a tendency to always want to solve a situation when, and it's not always that case. So if somebody just asks you for your opinion, I mean, it's more or less you would think that it's about how would you handle it, not how you fix it, but that's what y'all, I mean, that's what men tend to do. They want to fix the whole situation rather than just, well, if I were in that position, this is what I would do.
And in my position, when I made the statement, I immediately gave her credit for her thought.
Okay.
That was her thought about something I did. But I did not see, I didn't go to that argument level because she was not talking about me as a person.
Right.
My idea, my delivery to our son, she did not think was the greatest thing for me to have said or done.
Yes.
And I had to immediately realize that. Because after 40 years, them fighting words.
Yes.
For most people.
Yes.
You have to learn not to take things personal.
You have to learn not to take things personal. That's what she said. Go ahead, say it again.
And you have to learn not to take things personal. But in our instance, from time to time, I have a high-pitched voice. I'm not being ugly or nasty. It's just that my response might not always coincide with what he thinks it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to kind of learn to at, at face value and understand, especially us now after being married almost 24 years. You should know if my voice is high pitched, it might be something you might have did or said, but don't take it personal.
Right.
Understand the whole picture.
Right.
We often talk about assuming good intentions. And I have to concur with what you said about men in reference to
Wanting to fix things.
wanting to fix things. Because men listen when you're talking, we're listening for the fix. And women tend to speak from a place of emotion. And that's kind of what messes us up, is that you start talking, we already gone to Home Depot. And by the time we get back, we got a hammer, screwdriver, and a nail, and you didn't need any of that. And so it is important to make sure that we have all of the information before we try to do something. And just because someone says that our idea is stupid does not take anything away from us as a person. It just means, like you said, this delivery didn't happen like it perhaps should have happened. But because you're my wife and I love you, I assume that you had good intentions in sharing that with me, because you could have just let me walk off and talk to yourself and not said anything.
Yeah. In many cases, let's talk a little bit about our listening. We're going to go through a couple of things, and I want you guys to comment on that second sheet. Second sheet? Yes, sir. I want you guys to comment on some of the things that are in our cheat sheet, because we're talking about communications and relationship and marriage. And we have joining us Howie, I believe, if that's the Howie I know, he's way up in Pennsylvania. So hello, Howie. Ed
Hello,
Scott,
Howie.
Mary Figures, LaShawn Janice Johnson. We've mentioned Mike, we've mentioned Chris, and hello to all you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you.
Let's start with that first little paragraph here. Where's my sheet? It says, when you spend so much time with someone, you are bound to have at least one difference of opinion. At least one.
At least one.
To say the least. And it's not always easy to keep objective and level-headed when you enter into a disagreement with your partner. When this happens, remember to use these effective communications, and we got these for you guys. These are effective communications. Glenn, in some of the teachings that I've seen you do at our church, and then I've done as well, is the I statement.
Yes.
And let's talk about the I statement. Because in most cases, when we're asking something or blaming someone, it's always you.
Mm-hmm.
You did this.
Yes.
You said that. But we never say, I understood you to say. So let's talk about that just a few minutes.
Yeah, and the thing is that here's a little story that goes with that. And I use this as an example. It did not happen with my wife and I, but it was shared with me. And the thing was, the individual called her husband at work, and she said, do you want to go walking with me when you get home? And he said no. And the thing was that she wanted him to go, but she did not ask him to go. So he got home and she was somewhat perturbed about it. She says, I really wanted you to go with me, but you said no. And he said, I know what you stated to me, but you did not ask me to go. He says, you simply gave me an option and I took it.
Yeah.
And so he says, what I need you to do is be willing to ask for what you want and don't settle for what you think you can get. So it's important to state, I want this. And are you okay with that? Will that work for you? So it's kind of interesting that you have that on there, because it is important. The you is just a terrible thing, because always puts a person at a disadvantage, and more than anything, it put them on the defense. And so they really don't want to hear what you got to say if you've already pointed out the obvious.
Isn't it kind of ironic that when people are dating, they use the I a lot?
Yes.
You know, I like you. I'd like to see you.
Yes.
I'd like to do this. How about you? But when we get married, why does that change? And do you recognize some of that happening in the early years of your marriage?
I think it happened in the early years of ours, only because we didn't have anyone else to be responsible for. Now she had a son, and I had a son when we met, and that was really our only responsibility. Between she and I, we were probably 1,300 miles from home, and so when you get into that mode where it's just you, you know, it's like you want the whole world to revolve around you, and you don't take the time to take into consideration that there's another person. And then when we're dating, we find so many things that we don't like about the other person, and what we tell ourselves is, I'll change them. And so then we try to make them become complicit to our world, not ever taking the opportunity to care about what they care about.
Now, in this I statement, a lot of times after being together a little while, when we kind of understand the dynamics of the parents and siblings, and have you ever had that time when the wife says, or the husband says, you just like your mama, or you just like your daddy? I see you.
I have not seen
Yeah. I won't tell you. I don't think we'd be as long as married as long as we have if we wasn't conscientious of that. One of the things that was brought to our marriage, and I think this is important when people thinking about marriage, if it's all possible, just like our brothers and sisters here, to have some counseling, some type of mediator, because we have an opinion, they have an opinion, and it's coming together. So consequently, when we first got married, I was very pleased that my wife was wise enough, or I was wise enough to listen to my wife to get some counseling prior to our marriage. And one of the most important things that saves us from the I theory that you just talked about is that it was explained to us that when you come into a marriage, you're going to have your baggage. And she comes into her marriage, the marriage, she's having your baggage. And the fatal flaw is that most people come in saying, we're coming to a 50-50 meeting, we're coming together to meet on a horizontal concept. And of course, I learned that just in helping the people out there, it's never horizontal, it's vertical. If we point to God first, she points to God first, honor him, make him our center of attention, then we're not actually coming together horizontally, we're meeting each other vertically. And there's no I when I'm submitting to God. It's us. Right. And it was a big saving in my, because I came in with a lot of eyes. Do you agree with this? But I was clear to that disease, understanding the fundamental, I was clear to that disease, understanding the fundamental of your background, my background, a different background.
Yes.
But it's God as our center point. So consequently, we made a triangle. We actually, when we looked up, I was giving my honor to God, submitting. She was submitting to God and submitting to me because of that. And we grew together either way. But we grew together under his auspices of God's authority. And that was just like a life-changing experience for me personally.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to roll my eyes, but sometimes I tend to do that when things are said that are funny. In this particular case, when Larry and I got together, I think it was like maybe while we were dating. The first time I heard that I thing, I kind of wanted to correct him, but I didn't want to be negative when I corrected him. So, and he quickly changed it. So, yeah, in the beginning he was that I person, and it's all about me, and because he was the single person that had no baggage. I had baggage, but it kind of changed a little bit quickly after we got married, where he understood, and I was praying about it in our prayer time.
Prayers work.
In our prayer time, I did, make mention of a few things that in the prayer, and that's how he corrected.
I would submit to you. You said he came without baggage. No.
Well, what I meant by he didn't have any children.
Okay, he didn't have that baggage.
That kind of baggage.
But he had some different
He
baggage.
did have some different baggage, yes, yes.
There's a book by Lou, what's the man's name? It'll come to me. The name of the book is it's about baggage. And it's my wife, Lucado. Max Lucado. Traveling Light is the name of the book. And it is about the baggage that we pick up every day and carry with us. He does a demonstration of different bags. It's called parents, siblings, grief, depression, anxiety, anger, things that we take with us every day. Those are, and we're picking up more every day. If somebody says something to us at work or in the street, cuts us off, we add that baggage, that frustration level that we add to it, and we will take that and pour it on the people that we care about the most.
Yes.
You had something that you wanted to add to that?
Well, I'm just thinking in terms of how we tend to make each other a container for our rage. There are so many things that I brought to this marriage. After having marriage displayed in front of me for years, I didn't want to be like my parents. My parents had an okay marriage. They were married 78 years, but they had an okay marriage. And there were so many things that I saw that I liked. There were so many things that I saw that I did not like. And so I made a vow that I was going to be good to my wife. Problem was that I had to love her through flesh. And I had so much of my dad in me and so many enemies and demons assigned to me from him that I had to really soak myself in Christ. But I did come to understand this by being good to my wife, because God made her the producer. She's the production area of the marriage. And whatever I sowed into her, she was able to incubate that and give it back to me, and it's multiplied. So if I was going to sow meanness, she was going to sow hell back to me. And so it's important that we find out early on that we can speak those things that be not into our marriages and into our spouses and wash them with the word. And if you do that, they can give you nothing back but love, because God is love. And so what you sow in, just remember, she's going to give it back to you 10 times the way you gave it to her.
Amen.
Now you got to talk.
I just want to add to, we have to know who we are and whose we are. We got to know who we are in Christ. And I think initially when we first got married, some years ago, I knew who I was, but I wasn't confident in what I brought to the marriage. So whenever Glenn said something, I'd just say, okay. And
because I was right.
Yeah. And I did it for so long until it got to the point where, no, that's not, it doesn't always have to be your way. And I think because I let it go on for so long, when I said no, he was like, oh, okay, so we need to sit down and talk and communicate and figure this thing out, because now it's not his way all the time. I have to have a voice. I had to use my voice and explain to him that, okay, yeah, I did say yes all the time because I wasn't confident in who I was, but now I know who I am and what I bring to the table. Now you gotta listen to me, so you gotta know who you are.
So what I heard you say was, at some point in time, that level place where you were just a little below that level in your own thinking and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But as you decided and chose and grew to know yourself, then Glenn kind of felt left behind.
I think so.
Somewhat.
Yeah, immediately, I felt like that everything that I had done as a husband in the 18 years that we had been married, that I hadn't accomplished anything, that I was not a good husband. And so we had to seek counseling. So we had a session with our pastor, and one of the things that he said is that it's okay to grow. And he told me to embrace her change and for her not to hold me in contempt for what I had done in the past, because it did not take away from all of the good things that I'd done. It's just that we are in a different stage and we're at a different age. And you have to be able to embrace that. And I love the queen that I have now because I place value on what she says.
Do you think when we first get together as dating couples, we see certain things in our mate, but we don't talk about if one starts to grow and the other does not, or we perceive that they are growing and the other is not, or vice versa. And do you perceive that to be an area of non-communication?
I think that it is. I think that it is. But that's the part about holding an individual in contempt. You can't hold one in contempt to what you've been complicit to, because you didn't know how to articulate it. It wasn't that you didn't know. You chose not to deal with it because you didn't know how to articulate it. And that's why we have to have these communication skills. Knowing how to put together the words to say what's on your heart, that's not acceptable. I didn't give you permission to speak with me like that. So the coaching part is important. Knowing what to say in a way that it doesn't cause another individual to go on, go into survival mode. Because how you say it and what you say is going to either calm the whole situation down or it's going to put the person in survival mode.
For both of my couples here, you talked about family and how you saw or experienced your dad. I did the same. And as much as we say sometimes that we're not going to be like our fathers, we end up saying and doing or thinking and displaying some of the same things.
Yes.
If you saw your father as being the dominant person in the house, if you saw yours being, or your mom being the unique person in the house, then perhaps sometimes we go into marriage feeling and thinking that same way. But do we make a commitment when we first get married is to help the other person to grow? Is that a promise that we make? No, it's not. But it should be, because it becomes an area of contention when one person decides, I don't want to be like my parents anymore. I'm going to choose to speak up, not be a floor mat. And sometimes the way we come out of that is like a volcano. We just burst it. Go ahead, Evan.
Well, I'm glad you brought that into your attention. I'm reading, and of course I like to use some scripture. I always base some things I'm thinking of. And it's usually sometimes the way we approach relationships, communication. And I guess this is the most important thing I think when we talk about relationships. This is out of Mark 6 and through 8. And I'm going to just read it real quickly. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and join his wife, and the two shall be one flesh. So then they are no more two, but one flesh. That is a foundation that we want to work on, because we see ourselves as a one flesh marriage, but we're still two individuals.
Yes.
And I always say, when we talked about the baggage and things like that, there's no one that can hang a sign on the door saying no hurt here, meaning they have something that they're bringing to the table. So when we come into a relationship, thinking, well, we're going to be together one flesh, yes, we growing. That's under an authority. But two individual people, and they go at different levels, and the two at different times. It's the respect that you have for that person as that growth process that keeps the relationship strong and keep that bond together. The respect that we're going to grow as one. We're going to go into the flesh, and we're leaving mom and dad. And that's kind of why I never used my parents as the primary example, even though they had a great marriage to death, through and part. I remember Kathy's relationship and their parents. It was a good relationship. So we saw that, but we're two totally different individual people, bringing in our own individuality to that. And with that in mind, it's back to being under authority, utilizing something higher than myself,
Yes.
as the being the all final answer, and recognizing that I have to be placed under authority so that she honors being part of my situation. And that, I think, will help any marriage once you recognize that, and recognize the scripture is strong, but the one flesh is important. But it's two individuals still making that one.
One of the things that I do, because of one of my degrees is in biblical psychology, and I take scripture and kind of break it apart a little bit, because in that reading, the word leave my parents,
Right.
but it doesn't speak to leave the junk that I learned. When we think of leave, we think of physically moving out.
Okay.
But we don't think of mentally, I'm still bringing some stuff.
Correct.
And that's the thing that we have to choose to understand in Scripture, is how do we apply that to everyday living? Because it is strong to have Scripture. It is very strong to understand that we are leaving them behind. But the baggage that we carry, and especially in my relationship with my wife, because she was around when they were alive and saw how they acted, and then sometimes she would let it slip, just like your dad. And I have to say, I sure am.
I never heard that before.
I can't get mad at that.
Right.
I can't take offense to that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like it either.
Yeah.
But yet I find myself thinking and saying some of those same things.
Absolutely.
My father was adopted. No one taught him about money. For him, money was meant to be spent. For me, it's meant to be spent. I had to learn to be conservative, to be objective. Like my wife, she hates late payments. She hates late payments. She don't pay anything late. Me, they'll get it when I send it. That's something that we have to change. And that's something that I brought with me. Yeah, we want flesh, but we ain't spending money the same way. So those things we have to learn to communicate about, talk about communications ahead of time. Number 2 on our little list here says, listen and don't interrupt. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but let's talk about that a little bit more, because when we're choosing to listen to somebody, we're also choosing to come up with a solution.
Hello.
We're choosing to say, I got
While they're talking.
While they're talking. And Kathy, Samantha, would you read what it says there?
poll number 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Usually, when a disagreement arises between a couple, the biggest problem is that nobody really listens to the other person. Everyone's just merely waiting for his or her turn to talk. Most of the time, disagreements can be resolved more easily using effective communication skills and paying more attention to what is making the other person upset. Look out for telltale signs in the person's body language. 2, for hints on thoughts and feelings.
What they mean there is, while you're talking, if the person is moving forward, just can't wait to get their in, or says what you're going to say, or cuts you off and not let you finish, those are telltale signs we're not communicating.
That's right. And I was listening to my sister earlier when she was talking, and I think Larry made a comment. And when he made the comment, she apologized for rolling her eyes, because that is a sign of dissent, disregard, disrespect, dishonor. And so you have to be careful with your body language, because I can tell you that a lot of times the body language is a learned behavior that we picked up from somewhere in our pathology. And most of the time when we leave home, our plan is to do better, to be better, to have better. And because of our pathology, it gets in the way. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I've been in church since I was born. I think I was born between the pews and the pulpit. And so were my parents. The thing is that I don't always do that which I know I should do. It's the thing that I should do, I don't do that. And so the fact of the matter is what bothers me more than anything, and which is why we are so avid about getting with couples, is how do you take that same mouth and call on the name of Christ and cuss each other out in the parking lot when you leave church? And it's probably because no one has ever told you that your flesh doesn't get saved. And because you have to love each other through that flesh, we tend to interrupt because we think we know more than the other person. God told me, and this was before you told me, God told me, and since I couldn't see him, I didn't believe him. But I saw you, and I believed you.
Yeah.
He said to me, the reason you don't ask questions is because you think you know everything. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't talking to anyone but me. And I tried to give it to the class. But then you reminded me he was talking to me. And so we have to be realistic about this two becoming one flesh. Now, see, I'm a simple person. So I say, okay, the two become one flesh. That means we have some children. And my flesh and her flesh gets together and get in the child, and there's some ugly stuff in there I hate and some good stuff in there I hate. But I don't want to kill it. I got to learn to love myself that I see ugly in the child. If we could get each other and become one in the flesh, we've accomplished great things. But it's the one in the spirit is where we're after. And I love what you said when you talked about the triangle going up. So the thing is not to get to the place where you think that the person who is talking have no value or they don't know what they're talking about.
Amen. All I can say is amen to that. And I think forums like this, forums like we facilitate the marriage ministry, we use the Bible as our foundation, but we have real talk. And I think that's what has helped us a lot too in our marriage, and it helped us grow and not see it out my way. It's not my way, but just communicating. And I think if we did this early on, I mean, we might not have gone through some of the hell that we've gone through. But I'm just grateful to my pastor at Hope Church, the things that he has taught us, some of the things that we've learned about Psalm 0. I don't know if anybody know about sum zero,
Well,
but
tell us.
sum zero is, you know, when you have a, you know, you and your mate, you know, having a disagreement, and one party, they get their way all the time, and this other person is sitting over here getting nothing.
I walk away with it all.
And that's just not how it should be. We should communicate, we should talk, and hey, you should get some of the things you want, I should get some of the things that I want. So there's a lot of things that I take away from forums like this, from our marriage class, and just communication.
What I want to do, because what we're talking about here really rolls into number 3. Kathy, would you do us the favor?
Okay.
You do not need to be a psychic, and your partner should not expect you to be one.
Stay right there. Do we men, I'm talking to the men now, assume that we know that she ain't got no idea what she talking about when she talking about whatever she talking about?
Amen. Amen.
Wives, do we assume we're psychics now? We're psychics. You know, that is one. He just ain't got nothing going on what I'm trying to relate to him, so I'm going to have to give him a little more.
Lord, have mercy.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, let's keep going. What's the rest of it say?
When communicating with your partner, if you have any doubt about what has just been said, or you're still not sure what is making your partner upset, ask. It's worse to assume something that is wrong and then jump to the wrong conclusion.
Do you think that happens a lot in marriages?
All the time. I think it happens all the time. But, okay, so in my particular case, I would think that we've been together long enough for him not to just assume, but him to know what I may be thinking. So I do want him to be a psychic.
We do want psychic, but we want it the way we want it when we want it.
Right.
And if that person turns out not to be the psychic that we want him to be, we have not told him.
No, his crystal ball is not actually accurate.
So we haven't helped him by leaving him signs.
Right. Yeah.
Like, my wife leaves me a sign when she needs me to wash the clothes. She'll stick them in front of them, right in front of me, and leave. So I can't say, I wonder if she want me to wash the clothes.
Yes. Psychic.
And we've gotten to the point that that's funny. That's funny. Because if I step over them and go on and do something else, she'll come back and say,
She didn't see those things?
you blind? And we know, unfortunately, we know what buttons to push. We learn, because we're psychic enough to know that if I push this button, I'm going to get this reaction. If I say this certain thing, I'm going to get this reaction. What really changes all of that is when we don't get the reaction that we thought we were going to get, being that psychic that we are. And sometimes that causes the argument, the disagreement, the miscommunication. Anybody got anything to say about that?
Well, you know, it's tough. It's tough because we've been programmed a certain way. I was listening to the sister. She says that, yeah, you know, I want him to be a psychic. We've been together long enough that he ought to kind of know what I like. That means he's paying attention to me. That's basically what she's saying. The problem with that sometimes is that we change. And what I liked when we first got married, I don't like anymore. And you keep giving me the stuff that I don't want. And to keep down an argument, I keep taking it. So I'm swallowing stuff that I don't like to eat anymore. And so there's a song out there that Bishop Jakes had on one of his books that talks about satin sheets. And it says that the woman goes and she's talking about bringing satin sheets home and red rose and all of that. And he says that if she had just taken the time to ask the man what he wanted, he'd have told her, don't bring home satin sheets because they slide.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we start asking before we start giving, and then we have to have the courage enough to say, I don't like that anymore, and then tell me what you like so I'm not guessing. Because can you imagine how much money is spent across this nation on stuff that the spouse doesn't like and they just accept it? How long are you going to be married to your spouse before she tells you, I really don't like flowers? But you get them for a birthday, you get them for Christmas, you get them for, but she really doesn't like them. And isn't there some indication that she doesn't like them because they die real fast? You put water on them. You know, so we have to start asking.
I was going on for 3 weeks now.
She loves flowers.
She
That's
like,
probably
yeah, we got
she
some
loves
of
flowers.
that. Yeah, 3 weeks on.
So yeah, start asking.
I like this, and I'm just going to go back a minute ago. Just what my brother was kind of echoing what he said. He says, by the way, active listening also means you must stop doing anything else besides giving your undivided attention to your partner.
Yes.
No texting,
Yes.
no checking your email, doing your nails, etc. Stop and listen. When you have understood what is affecting your partner, it is then your turn to talk. And it's back to what he was saying there. Once we effectively listening, then we start to understand. And you know what they say about assume.
Yes.
You know what assume does. So
I want to remind you there was an ass in the Bible, so you can say that.
Yeah, well, you and me.
More than one.
Yes, more than one. So consequently, what I've learned in a relationship is not to assume, but to ask. And of course, in the courses we've taken and the coaching that you've given us, the technique that I constantly hear you say is, now, what I heard you say was,
yes.
and if you could repeat that, then that let them know that you gave that full attention
Yes.
to that conversation. And if you got it wrong, they'll correct it.
Absolutely.
You know, no, I didn't say that. This is what I actually said, and then you get it corrected, you get it right.
It also helps them to hear themselves, because
Yeah.
when you say to someone, what I heard you say was, and if you can say what they're saying, they then start thinking, did I really mean that particular thing?
Correct.
Or they reinforce what is being said,
Yes.
or their thought pattern is about that particular subject.
Yes.
It's a great way to communicate.
Right.
It's a great way to communicate. And not just with your spouse, but I've done it with you.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's on a regular basis. It helps in, well, we're in background is in sales. You know, we have to be able to articulate, we have to
They're in sales too now.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Okay, well, like mine, think alike. And we have to be effective, and be an effective salesperson. You have to really understand what that person needs is, how you satisfy that particular need, and to give them the objective of satisfaction. That's where sale comes from. Without it, you can't sell what people don't want.
There's a own technique. You're in mortgage, you're in real estate and engineering, you're in sales, you're retired and having a good time. But there is such a thing is in sales that we were taught is you sell the person what they need, and then give them what they want. In marriage, in communications, in relationships, we need to give people what they need, and then come back and try to satisfy what they want. One of the biggest needs, I believe, that married couples, especially wives, need is security. For men, it's more admiration. We like to be honored, pat on the back, said we did a great job.
We worked on the ball.
Yes, we took the trash out. We want some thanks. And women said, it ain't about thanks. That's about security.
Yeah.
Take it out, show me that you are a part of this, and maybe
You'll get some things.
Yeah, you get some things. But our choice is not to feel disrespected or even dished because we did what was expected of us. And talking about what is expected of us, sometimes we don't even talk about the things that we do expect.
Yeah.
And for us men, sometimes we may need to write them down.
You know, there's a golden rule.
Can you get the mic?
There's a golden rule out there that says treat your spouse or another person like you want to be treated. But there is a platinum rule out there too that no one wants to follow. And that is, how about treating me like I want to be treated? And when you don't know how to treat yourself, you're probably going to treat me badly too. If you love yourself, you're probably going to love me too. But the way you give it to me and the way I define it is totally different from you. So it's important that you learn what my definition is of what you're trying to force on me. And love me like I want to be loved. And when you do that, the value in that is that when I go to sleep at night, I know that the other person is happy and excited because they got what they wanted.
I heard you say, define.
Yes.
But do we choose to have that discussion of defining what I want or what I don't want? Not just saying what I don't want, but the reasons I don't want. The reason that you mentioned sometimes your voice is high, but the reason your voice is high is because, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and please forgive me and choose not to be offended. But Mary, the same height, having to feel that we have to fight for more because, now, I'm 5'10" and a half. I claim 5'11". I did claim 6
2
foot
more inches.
when I had.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
But
Right.
I always wanted to be tall because I always wanted to look down at folks. But then the people that are tall don't want to be tall because everybody else is under them. But choosing to be proud about what you are, how you are, is important. But we sometimes feel that we have to fight for more. And we don't justify that reason for the fight, not to the other person, but until ourselves. And if we can define that, if we understand why we're choosing to feel how we're choosing to feel, then what other people say or do really should not affect us. So,
Well, it's strange that we do that at home. Spouses will fight for position and power at home. Go to work and let people walk on them. And I don't know if it's because of the vestige, where the other person at work, I really don't care about them because I'm only going to see them and going about my business. But I got this person at home who admires me, and I don't want them to see me in a bad light, or they're trying to bully me, and I'm just not having it. But we got to learn to be one person. You cannot be two people. You got to be one person. If this is how you are at home, this is how you ought to be at work.
but if you're bullied at work,
Yes.
I don't know if I agree with that though.
well, you're very, 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 very capable of telling us your reason. Go ahead. Yes.
I mean, he said it. I mean, the people that I work with them for 8 hours, 9 hours. After that, I'm done with them. I'm not, but I'm definitely not gonna let them bully me. That's number one, because I'm not the bullying type. And it probably has to do with my height. But I'm gonna deal with my spouse the way that I would want to be dealt with. You know, that's the way I see it. If I'm gonna go to you in a kind manner, I expect you to return, talk to me in a kind manner. If I go to you in a kind manner and you turn around and snap at, you snapping my head off,